The
Recording in progress.
Good.
there we go.
Very good. Good evening. We have a quorum. We'll call the planning board meeting to order. And for the planning board in attendance, you have Bill Dwyer, myself, Jim Maximowski, Joe Zagrodnik, and Matt Waltrip. And I would expect Mark Dunn to be on shortly. But anyways, meeting is being recorded. First up for general information, Mr. Dwyer.
Well, first up was Mr. Roberts, which I think may incorporate Mr. Parmar and Mr. Reedy. Or not.
Yes, we're here for the senior housing overlay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Right.
Same here.
That brings us to Jim Aronson. And your meeting.
I'm here for the senior housing as well, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I believe Mr. Harris might be here for accessory dwelling units.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, that makes it pretty easy. While we have Mr. Roberts and Mr. Attorney Reedy here, we have a question about 299 Russell Street and the parking.
Go ahead.
We originally thought there was just going to be a few vehicles there from Hadley Subaru. Come to find out, the parking lot is packed, to say the least, and it is blocking and impeding emergency vehicle access to the fire hydrant on the building and other stuff. And the fire truck is almost impossible to get in there and maneuver. We heard that today from the building inspector, and concerned by the fire chief.
Okay. We don't know that we had said how many were going to be there. I honestly don't remember. Let me talk with Jeff Casey, who's the facilities director for Belize. And maybe it's worth a site visit out there with the fire chief and the building commissioner to make sure that we can allow them adequate access.
Yeah, I know that they've been, nobody's been uncooperative. Don't take it that way. But it's just that they have to go out there to keep reminding them you can't park here, and then they go back there a day or so later and it's blocked again. So, it may need something like, I'm not sure, painting the lot, whatever. I don't know what's appropriate. And I think a meeting with the fire chief and the building inspector would probably be the easiest way to do that.
Okay.
My recollection was that you were talking about having one sample model from each one sample from each model line on that site, and the rest would be kept remotely.
Okay. Bill, honestly, I don't remember. I could go back and watch the video and see if we said that. And anyway, I'll just talk to Jeff.
Definitely. Apparently they're blocking some of the fire department connections, the standpipes.
Sure. Okay.
Just that it can be reasonably resolved with the right people over there and just to get it straightened out. So we requested, since you were going to be, they knew you were going to be on the meeting tonight, to just ask you to look at it.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess next steps, let me follow up with Jeff and Belize. And then I haven't been over to the site. Let me go over to the site, see what it looks like. And then I can talk to Tommy and the fire chief and just try to get everybody on the same page so that everybody's happy with what's happening there.
Okay. But while we have Mr. Parmar, we have I think it's a misinformation. Is there going to be a restaurant in your new hotel?
We didn't plan on one.
We didn't think so either. We're guessing it's probably just going to be that you're going to be serving breakfast or whatever it is as part of the room service. I mean, part of the, like a lot of restaurants, how they serve a morning breakfast.
Yeah, it's just similar to what we're doing at our Hampton Inn and our Homewood Suites with the morning breakfast.
Yeah. And that's fine. We don't have a problem with that, but just that we heard from you know how rumors start. And we have a Tuesday meeting with the building inspector and a few other people. And one of the things came up that there's going to be a restaurant in the new Marriott there. And we says, no, we didn't know about that. I says, you mean a restaurant? They're just going to be serving their guests their own food.
No, there's no room service. There's no nothing really running after breakfast hours around 11 or 12. I know we've reached out to the health, the Board of Health and the health inspector regarding making sure we're in compliance and that they know what we're putting in. I know Hadley's, we're actually doing inspections and looking at things more closely than we have in the past. So that's about it. But no breakfast, no room service. I mean, no restaurant, no room service.
And that's fine.
Okay.
We didn't think so. He says, Bill and I heard that. He says, that's new stuff. Are you sure it's going to be a restaurant or just a regular, the complimentary breakfast that a hotel serves?
No,
So
we're out of the catering food service business for the foreseeable future. So
Yeah, the licensing coordinator was on it, and she said that if it is a restaurant, you need a common vitular license. But if you're not, you don't. And then that's when the health inspector said, well, they have applied for a food service permit. So
yeah,
we just clarify.
yeah, I think in the past we have had a common vic license anyways, but we've never done even with the breakfast. I think we've always done a common vic, but we don't need it. That's fine. But we're gonna apply for everything else that was required for the free breakfast.
Yeah, Jennifer will tell you what you need if you ask her.
Okay, we'll do.
okay. Anybody else have anything for general information? Anything else for the planning board, Mr. Dwyer?
That is my list. Oh, Jackie Zusko just joined, but I'm not sure if she's here for the public hearings or with a specific question.
Ms. Zuzgo, do you have anything? Were you just here to listen?
You're muted.
Okay. All right. Mark Dunn has also joined us from the planning board, so now we have all 5 members. Okay, Kyle, you're up.
Evening, everybody. Good to see you. In terms of an update from PVPC, since our last meeting, I provided input on the ADU draft warrant. I haven't made progress on the planning board rules and regs, as I was waiting to see this task get wrapped up. But I'm ready to switch back to the rules and regulations, focusing on standard conditions for special permits. Happy to bring that to you all in November if that's still the plan.
That'd be fine.
Okay. In terms of the DLTA Smart Growth Project, Mark, I would invite some input since I wasn't at the meeting yesterday, but the steering committee met in September. We've closed the survey. We're summarizing some of that. The steering committee members have taken it upon themselves to craft a series of fact sheets, trying to address some of the concerns and questions that came out of the survey responses. Mark, would you like to add anything?
Sure. Yeah, we met yesterday without PVPC, just the members, and Kyle had sent us his updated summary, but most of us didn't have time to read it, so we put that off until when he attends our next meeting. We had no public input last night, and then there were There was a desire to discuss a topic by one of the members that was not on the agenda, so we had a little clarification discussion and we moved on without, we said we'll discuss that at the next meeting, it'll be on the agenda. And otherwise, we talked about the FAQs that had been talked about and the drafts that Justin Palan started up and that we were fairly happy with, and then we just were making some tweaks. So that's about all that happened yesterday.
Okay. Thank you.
So are we still, you still thinking that probably fall of 25 is a more likely target?
I think so. I believe there's going to be some more public engagement that's really needed to get
Yeah.
a clear sense of what the public is would find acceptable. There's still a lot of confusion about the topic. There's a wide variety of opinion that was provided in the 300+ surveys, so that's valuable, but it doesn't necessarily give the planning board a lot of clarity in terms of, bringing forward a viable proposal for amending the bylaws. We're still hoping to hear back regarding the application for planning assistance grants from EEA. I'm expecting that this month. And if that were to not materialize, we would be in a good spot to have another DLTA application ready for the next calendar year and keep the momentum going. Any other questions?
Continue on with what you're doing.
All right.
You got a interesting topic to deal with for the town, leave it at that. And you have realizing from the surveys. So.
Yeah. Interesting to say the least. But thank you all, and Mr. Dwyer, I'll be in touch with you regarding the special or the standard conditions for
Standard
special permits.
Oh, we also got Pioneer Valley Planning Commission in partnership with the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, Wayfinders.
Right.
Could you explain a little bit about that? Are you familiar with that, Kyle?
I'm happy to speak to that right now. Yes, the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission has publicized its collaborative application for federal funds through the Housing Urban Development's Pro Housing program. This is a large pool of money that is not regularly available. This was the second announced round of funding coming through the program, totaling $100 million with maximum grants at $7 million. PVPC reached out to our peer organization, Franklin Regional Council of Governments, FRCOG, to see if they would like to go in partnership, applying for a large chunk of money, multiple millions. With support from Wayfinders, Regional Affordable Housing Developer, UMass Donahue Institute, Massachusetts Housing Partnership, and Rural Development, Inc., which is an affordable housing developer associated with FRCOG. We've developed a proposal that would provide funding for the next 5 years to advance affordable housing across the greater Pioneer Valley. For FRCOG, that would mean implementing their regional housing plan, which they just adopted this past month, September. Yeah, it's October now. For PVPC and its member communities, including Hadley, we would be focusing on updating housing plans for each community, each of our 43 communities. So Hadley, with an adopted housing production plan that's pretty new, You would likely be lower on the priority list for that task, but it would happen within the 5 years of the grant funding. But more broadly, the exciting opportunity is to create 2 regional plans, a regional land use plan for Hampshire and Hampden counties and a regional housing plan. PVPC last created those documents in 2012 to 2014, thanks to funding during the Obama administration. So it's not frequent that this amount of money is made available for regional planning agencies like PVPC. So we kind of quickly organized and gave it our best effort. More information is on the PVPC website, including a recording from last Thursday morning when we reviewed elements of the application. The draft application is available for review. It's a 40-page document that has a bit more detail, more context, and a breakdown of the budget and different activities. There's also a survey because we're required to have the application available for 15 calendar days. We're also required by HUD to include any public comment. So there's a survey there. If any members of the planning board or members of the public that are curious, interested, feel free to click. It's very short, but it's just an open-ended survey allowing you to provide your thoughts. Any questions for now?
And you're looking for support from the planning boards in the valley to sign a letter of support?
We had reached out directly to the select boards of all the communities or town city managers, mayors, and the like. If the planning board would like to sign on, that would be welcome. The more letters of support, the better, the stronger the case is made. At this point, I believe we've received, of the 43 communities, I think we've only got like 13 outstanding that we haven't heard back from. A lot of select boards are deliberating on it this week.
Okay.
I understand that Happy has already signed it.
Yeah, very good.
So I don't know, when I got this in, I didn't know when it was going to be up for discussion. So I put it on our agenda as well. And I understand there's a template. You just have to fill in name, rank, and serial number and not actually generate text.
Yeah, for the sake of efficiency, trying to coordinate 69 municipalities, we kind of drafted a blanket letter and just allowed everyone to just sign on if they approve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that announcement would be expected January 2025. The grants roll out and activities are supposed to begin in February of 2025. So it could be pretty transformative in a lot of ways. It'd be a lot of really meaningful work.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to support the grant application.
I would second it.
What does support mean?
Sign the letter.
Oh, the chairman signs it?
If you want to go online to do it, or I can go online to do it.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, as long as one of us does it, that's fine. Why don't you designate one of us?
Okay, well, we nominate the chair and chair to sign, and you just it's a link in the email I sent around the end of last week.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay. You have a motion and a second to have the chair sign this letter of support for PVPC application. Any other discussions? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Dunn, aye.
Dwyer, aye.
Maximovsky, aye. Zagrodnik, aye. Matt Waldrop.
Can't hear you, Matt.
You're muted.
No, he's not.
Well, his device may be muted.
Okay.
His Zoom is not.
His Zoom is not muted, but
Okay, raise your hand if you approve. All right, good.
Okay.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
You guys hear me now? Is this better?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, Waldrop, aye.
All
Sorry.
right, good. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is 6:49, we'll open our public hearing on the proposed zoning articles. I will read part of it. The Hadley Plan Board will conduct a Zoom public hearing on Tuesday, October 1st, 2024, beginning at 6:45 p.m. Purpose of the hearing is to review the following proposed amendment to the zone bylaw. One, amend section 26 accessory apartments by changing the name to accessory dwelling units, and to remove the portions that are in conflict with the new state law on ADUs, and to amend various sections of definitions and the table of uses. Number two is to amend section 1716 by deleting it in its entirety, and then to amend section 27, the senior housing overlay district and zone map, to allow senior housing in the area bounded by Russell Street, North Maple Street, Rocky Hill Road, and Route 116. Complete text of amendments are based and zone map are available by emailing planning or contacting the Hadley town clerk, and published twice in the Gazette, September 13 and 20. And I think the easiest way to do this is to take the easiest one first, which is the delete section 1716. This is really a housekeeping article that relates to the rate of development bylaw in the transfer of development rights section, which is section 17. And it tells you various things about how the rate of development relates to the rate of development bylaw. Well, the rate of development bylaw was basically null and void years ago. So this section is 100% useless nowadays. So we just want to delete it to clear up the zone book. That's all. Any questions on it?
I will make a motion to recommend to town meeting that we approve the article to amend section 17.6.
1-6.
17.16.
Yes. We have a second?
Done.
Mark
Second.
seconds. Any discussions? All in favor? Roll call vote.
Done. Aye.
Dwyer, aye.
Maximowski, aye.
Waldrop, aye.
Zagradnik, aye. 5-0, motion passes unanimously. And the next one is to amend the senior housing overlay district to include the large rectangle that I just mentioned, bound by North Maple Street, Rocky Hill Road, Route 116, and Russell Street or Route 9. And that would be to allow senior housing as an overlay district in that area. Any comments or questions on this one?
This is by petition from the landowner.
That is basically correct, yes.
I would.
I have a comment. May I comment?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
absolutely.
Oh, thank you. This is my first time joining your meeting, so thank you for hearing what I have to say. My name's Jim Aronson, and I own some property within this district that is being considered for rezoning. I haven't been in front of you before, but I have been involved with the planning department when Alexandra Dawson asked me to try to put together a sale of land on the other side of 116 across from the UMass Stadium, of which was sold, and part of it was a bus company, and I'm sure you know the rest of it went to conservation, which was a wonderful thing to have happened. At the time, it kind of left my brother and I with the property on the other side, which is within this zoning district that you're commenting about right now for the senior housing. And the property was actually split at one time because Route 116 went through up the middle of Uncle Frank's land. And it was because it was a state highway, there wasn't any drainage that was allowed. And so it created wetlands, in the area. And there's some wetlands that are on the land that is on the Hadley side of 116 that I own as well. Although the last delineation, there were some uplands as well on that. My concern is not that senior housing wouldn't be a good thing for the particular property there. I'm totally, on board with providing housing that's necessary for people to live in. But my concern is that whatever might be done there might create additional wetlands and not be able to really handle the water that's going to come out of changing the topography of that land. And, already that particular property that I have is bound, and it's not easy to get to. But in terms of anything that's done in that area, I don't know whether it's proper or improper to ask for some assurance that that land wouldn't continue to be disenfranchised even more, and put into a state where there'd be no way of ever being able to do anything. And I'm just concerned about it. And I kind of thought I'd just let everybody know that the particular property that's bound by West Mass, the Babb family property is above it, and then Rocky Hill Road, and then 116. It's just, it's about 14 acres. Is really subject to being to perhaps hurt by things that are going to perhaps go on there. I guess I kind of been informing you. I don't know if there's anything that I can really do about it, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. So thank you.
So the proposal actually improves your land to a degree. We presently don't allow new dwellings in the industrial district. And the section of your land on the west side of 116 is in the industrial district, I believe.
Yes, I think you're right.
So the overlay would allow housing in there. That doesn't mean you could put housing there, it just would allow it.
I see. Okay. Again, this is kind of new territory for me, Mr. Dwyer. So I appreciate your comments and thank you for mentioning that.
My understanding, and I would defer maybe to our conservation agent, Kayla, who's on here. My understanding is that under current wetlands law, you cannot increase the rate of discharge from one property to another, but you can discharge for longer. Is that roughly true?
Basically, I mean, any project that goes forward in this zone will have to go in front of the Conservation Commission and will have to go through a thorough review process under the Wetlands Protection Act, which includes probably stormwater review unless it's like a single family home. So any non-single family home has to meet all those stormwater standards.
Yeah. If and when the project, if this zone change gets approved, and if and when this project moves forward, I believe you are in a butter.
Yes, I am. So
You will be notified by mail, and you'll be able to access all the plans and all the information that's available to anybody else, and attend the public hearings and make your comments well known.
okay, very good. Thank you so much.
If I could just go a little off topic for a second, and probably for the benefit of both Matt and anyone who's watching at home who's wondering what we're talking about. We are required to hold a public hearing on proposed zoning changes before they can be presented to town meeting. We have three options with regard to proposed zoning changes. We can recommend them, we can recommend against them, or if the public hearing is more than 30 days before the town meeting, as I believe this one is, we can vote to take no action. Generally, a lot of the zoning articles that come to town meeting are articles that the planning board has been working on. We pretty much always recommend those. If we don't recommend them, we just pull them and keep them for further study. This is a little different in that, technically, the planning board has authorized this to be advanced to the town meeting warrant, but we are not advocating for it. It is a request from an investor who has a deal with a property holder in this district. They're seeking to create a new opportunity by adding it to the senior housing overlay district. To avoid a question of spot zoning, which is the problem you get when you have one parcel singled out, the proposed district is fairly large, but as a practical matter, much of it is already developed with other uses. So really comes down to only one or maybe two properties that have potential to sprout a senior housing project within this overlay district. So that's kind of the background of it, why we're here. If you haven't been following it, there is a specific project that is contemplated. It has been discussed in some detail at prior meetings. And as a practical matter, a zoning proposal like this becomes a referendum on the project itself. So I don't know whether, Tom, you're prepared to give some sort of a overview of what you're thinking and why you're asking, why your client is asking for this?
Sure, yeah, no, we'd be happy to. So maybe I think again, for context, let me share my screen just to give everyone on the meeting or viewing exactly what we're talking about. I know Jim had talked about the boundaries of it, but it's probably good to have a look at what we're actually talking about here. And so if you can see my screen, you'll see Russell Street, page bottom, that's to the south. You've got Rocky Hill up at the north. You've got 116 here, and then you've got North Maple Street on the westerly side of the property. This is, as Jim described it, the boundary of what that extended overlay district would be. And so stepping back, the senior housing overlay, I think, came in 2008. It is mostly on the westerly side of town, off of Route 9, Russell Street, a certain distance. I believe since its inception, there has been one project, and it's Mr. Roberts' project, East Street Commons. There are 35 residential condominium units there. And so, being in existence for 16 years and having one project, one of the thoughts was, well, let's expand that zoning district to maybe include some additional property. Barry spoke with the Babb family. Where my mouse is hovering right now, this is the Babb lot. I believe, Mr. Aronson, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is your lot that you were talking about over here. So, Mr. Maximowski, he is in a butter, and we'd be happy to talk with Jim, if I can call you that. We'd be happy to talk with Jim if this gets passed at town meeting, because as Kayla had mentioned, there are certain obligations under the stormwater Massachusetts stormwater standards, what we'd have to meet to make sure that your property is not becoming wetter than it is now, and certainly those dry spots are not becoming wet. So that's kind of part two of this, but what we're talking about now is actually the opportunity, and hopefully the planning board does recommend this to town meeting for much needed housing, for town meeting to approve it, so that then we can come back to the planning board, because it is a special permit from the planning board. And on a parcel like this, the maximum number of senior housing units you can have there is 50, and the maximum number of bedrooms you can have per unit is 2. So the maximum number of bedrooms you could have on this site is 100. And so just, we've done a little bit of diligence since we were here last. And so we had a plan, a subdivision plan put together. I can share it if you'd like to see it. But it shows that we could get 22 residential units, residential building lots there by right. Obviously, we'd have to go through the subdivision process in town with the planning board. But just for kind of comparison's sake, on the one hand, you could have 50 senior housing units, which would have 15% of those units, which would qualify on the town's subsidized housing inventory. Those are affordable units, quote unquote. They would be provided on site. So it's not like East Street Commons. It was at a point where it was the first, and I think only, there was a payment in lieu made and still being made to the Affordable Housing Trust in lieu of actually providing those affordable units on site. This project, and again, first we need the town meeting approval, but this would provide those affordable units on site. Affordable is a term of art. If these were to be rental affordable units, you cannot charge, you take 80% of the area median income for the family size. You can't charge more than 30% of that 80%. And then there is the ability for the town in the affirmative fair housing marketing plan associated with these affordable units to have local preference. And so that local preference could allow Hadley residents up to 70% of these affordable units, which takes paperwork, but that could be Hadley residents. So I'll maybe zoom in a little bit here. And so this is really the developable area, is this existing agricultural field. There would likely be 2 access points, one over on Rocky Hill, another one on North Maple. Barry's had a conversation with the DPW to confirm that there is sufficient capacity with the sewer tie-in for these number of units and bedrooms. The tie-in is about right here. There's likely to be a pump station, coming in off of here, and then have it gravity feed down into that sewer connection, and there is water capacity as well. And so, there are some kind of tax benefits to this, just to touch on briefly. Even if we were to assume each of these units had a $400,000 assessed value at your current tax rate for 50 units, you're probably looking at about $230,000 at the current tax rate at that assessed value annually in taxable income, or maybe taxable receipts, I should say, to the town. One of the other things to mention is this infrastructure. So any roadway that's here, pump station, lighting, stormwater, sidewalks, etc., would remain private. And so this would be a condominium. And so it would be the responsibility of the condominium association, the association of unit owners. And so it would not become a town responsibility. And so, one of the things in reading the housing production plan, you're looking for senior housing, you're looking for smaller units, which this would probably provide 1,300 to 1,800 square feet, and a place where Hadley residents could downsize. And what this does is it helps free up the market somewhat generally for, young families to come in for those, to be in those houses that Hadley residents would be vacating, potentially move into this site. So Barry, I'll turn it over to you. I don't know if you've got anything else to say, from a higher level. I think if you look at the surrounding neighborhood, you've got some lots that are probably in the 25,000 square foot range. And if you take this site, which is about 30 acres, and you say, okay, you've got 50 units there, you're probably to about 26,000 per unit that you have. Not that they would be on a 26,000 square foot lot, but as far as the density, you're about at the same density as you are in these surrounding areas, Lorana, et cetera, off of Huntington. And so I'll stop there. Barry, I don't know if there's anything else. I'll stop sharing. I don't know if there's anything you want to add that I happen to miss.
Not really, except we fully heard the planning board, which I know it's been controversial about paying in lieu of on East Street Commons, and we fully heard the planning board that they would like them to be built this time if we are successful, and we certainly are prepared to do that. We've come a long way in that within our group. Now we have somebody that's fully qualified, went to school to learn how to handle these affordable and does it for our apartment units. So we understand it a lot better than we did 15 years ago. And I'm happy to answer any questions about East Street Commons. Those units are all fully sold. They have been for a while. The last one will be finished up in a month and a half. And they're fully occupied, and it's coming to a point now where actually some of them are turning over. Well, if anybody has any questions about the senior community, I'm happy to try to answer.
One question on East Street Commons that has come up, is there supposed to be, some of the residents asked me to look into it, but since you're here, it'd be a lot easier. Is there supposed to be sidewalks on East Street Commons?
Originally, we showed on the original plan, we were gonna have sidewalks. And then we got together as a community and we took a poll because there's such slight traffic. And one of the things we didn't realize when we designed the project, that the sidewalks would take so much out of the front yard. Because we have such a big commons area in the center. And the commons area is that large because it handles all the stormwater for the whole project, including from the units and from the roadways and everything. So it was going to take a lot of property off the front of the homes. And we took a poll of all the unit owners in the project at that time. And it came out that unanimously to eliminate the sidewalks except at the entrance where it's two-way traffic. Once you come in, we divide the traffic and it goes one way around our circle. But there's two-way, so we have sidewalks from where it starts to be two-way to the street, East Street, and then we made a connection up to the bike path.
Good. Thank you. Well done.
Yeah, I don't know if Barry or Tom, I mean, want to answer this. I could be wrong, but I thought when there was a nonprofit doing a development, they talked about 2 tiers of affordable, like what met the state, and then and even lower. Is that anything that you would consider?
So I think, Mark, what you're talking about, and maybe Kyle jump in too, but I think you're talking about in a 40B project when you can either do 20 or 25%, and you could do 25% at a lesser discount or 20% at a steeper discount, meaning it would be more affordable. So like, and I don't know off the top of my head, I know that the 25% is 30% of the 80%. I'm not sure if it's 60% or some combination of 60%, 40%, et cetera, for the 20%. what that does with the 20 or 25%, it gets you 100% of those units to count on the subsidized housing inventory. Here, we're just looking at the compliance with the bylaw at the 15%, so it's not rising to the 20 or the 25%. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, but that's my guess.
Do you have a picture of the layout of the plan, what the houses are gonna look like, where the road is gonna be, and what it will look like when fully built out?
We don't, but I can probably, I mean, and part of this is not spending too much speculative money. But Barry, I mean, as we walk through, I think you're talking about, you know, a roadway here. And ultimately that roadway comes up to here. I think it's trying to keep this vegetated area, this treed area, exactly as it is. And then what you would have is just houses, and whether they're like T driveways off of here and other houses right along that roadway. And I would suspect that you're looking at, so we're not looking to change the language of the zoning bylaw. So you have to have one single family units. You can't have more than 4 units together. I think Barry would only be looking to do 1 unit, maybe duplexes, and I think that's probably a stretch. And I would suspect, and Barry, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but they would look similar to what East Street Commons looks like.
I would comment too, Tom, that this area over here on the backside of the woods, we don't intend to develop that,
Over here, yes.
this field over here.
Right, right. And then it's being sensitive. I mean, it's iterative, right? Sensitive to the neighbors over here, making sure that you're not right up on their backyard, you know, so maybe development more in this area. And then this area right in here is the main developable area.
Thank you.
No pickleball court?
That's not a bad idea. I know I've seen gazebos, but I think pickleball court's probably the new thing, so.
No, it's,
55 is not, I mean, I can't believe they call it senior housing, but
I've heard they're unpopular in residential because they're so loud.
because of the sound of it,
Yeah.
yes, I've heard the same.
Any other questions or comments on the proposed zone change? Hearing none, Mr. Dwyer, want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll try.
What does the planning board want to talk about, if we should support or take no action on this one?
You know,
Let me make the motion so we can discuss it. I'm going to make a motion to take no action.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Does the board feel that's appropriate here?
I feel it's appropriate, because the citizens in the area haven't really had an opportunity to know that there's going to be something going on. I mean, there were 3 proposed developments from the DPW for Amherst to, there was another proposal that just was, can't remember what it was, but nevertheless, there is concern in the neighborhood about what's going to happen to that property. So I concur with Bill's.
Okay.
If I could, Mr. Chair, I just want to mention that subdivision is allowed by right. And so by supporting this or recommending it, you're at least giving the opportunity for senior housing to be developed here. If not, I mean, you had that Trinitas proposal, it didn't go anywhere. Now, who knows if it comes back? Joe, you mentioned DPW. I don't think that's on the table. But still, this is a 30-acre piece of land which is going to be developed for something, including it could come back with a subdivision, and there's not much that, you know, with all due respect, that the planning board can do about it. I think this gives a way to get housing, senior housing, in an area that's going to be developed at some point. And so I don't know that I can understand politically why the planning board may not want to go out on the ledge and say, hey, listen, we're going to recommend this. But if you don't, there is an alternative, and it's not a threat by any stretch, but there is an alternative. And whether it's Barry or somebody else, this site's going to be developed for something.
What took you so long to come up with a threat of we're gonna do something else? I thought it would come in the beginning, but it came now. It's usually low-income housing. However, we do have our percentage of low-income housing. So you're a little slow on the, on.
So we're not voting against it. We're voting to take no action,
agree.
make no recommendation.
I totally agree, and there's a lot involved, so we would like to know more too, but.
The,
May I just ask, what can be done with the industrial zoning?
the industrial zoning, the industrial zone doesn't allow housing to be built in it. Residential housing. This would overrule that portion of that, of the bylaw. It would allow senior housing in the industrial zone.
This
But you
is an
could still-
overlay district, right?
You could still
Pardon?
build industrial units or some industrial complex there.
You could put industrial in that area, yes, if it meets the zoning bylaw, yes.
Next to the senior housing, that might be in another area.
Yeah.
It could be. The senior housing
If the senior-
industrial setbacks are greater when they are adjacent to agricultural residential property. So if you wanted to put call it a warehouse there, you would have to deal with the setbacks and the table of uses. There's a table of setbacks available online. You're free to take a look at it. And you'd have to deal with the wetlands concerns too. So it's and access, because someone else came in with some thoughts for that area, and you have a really steep access because the Rocky Hill Road goes up to cross over Route 116 at that spot. So you have a lot of challenges to developing that parcel industrially.
Yeah, it was my understanding there was 110 feet. At one time somebody mentioned that to me. I guess that's the minimum so that you can, but yes, I understand what you're talking about. I just was asking, what the possibilities were, Mr. Dwyer.
So you theoretically can do anything you're allowed to do in an industrial district, provided you can get to it and make it fit.
I understand. Thank you.
So nothing in this overlay district proposal affects the rules governing industrial districts, except that it would allow housing in the industrial district that's part of the overlay district.
Thank you.
There was a proposal by they were searching for, maybe is the best way to say it, to put in approximately a large apartment complex on the same property. However, apartments are not allowed in Hadley per se, and of this size, there was a lot of things that they would have to do. One was, the sewer alone was more than the town had available capacity for, I think, I'm not positive of that. And they would need a zone change from the town meeting to allow this. So, the proposed apartments was probably a stretch by any way of looking at it, whereas the senior housing or a subdivision, as Mr. Reedy has mentioned, are both possibilities. Senior housing, that requires the zone change we're looking at. Department, if the building subdivision for a home, single family homes could be by right.
Right. Sounds great.
So
I have a quick question, if
Sure.
I may, Mr. Chair. For when there's a zone change like this or an amendment proposed, is there any type of public notice, like a butter notice that's sent out, or is it just
Oh, the
public hearing?
state law requires towns, abutting towns, the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission and the state housing, I forgot what they're called. Basically, it's not quite HUD, but they used to be, but anyway, it's a state housing group that has to be notified in writing. There's 2 publications in the newspaper. The beginning of the meeting that I read, that's in the Gazette, at least 2 weeks prior to the public hearing. There is no requirement in state law that abutters be notified of a zone change like this. But if abutters have filed a letter with the town clerk of intent or a request, then the town clerk must mail out these notices to any abutter who requests information on something like this. To my knowledge, nobody has filed any requests, so the only place that were notified was the newspaper, town boards, and the appropriate abutting towns.
It will also be in the town meeting warrant when that is posted. And there'll be newspaper coverage of it as well.
Yeah, I'm sure after this meeting, the Gazette will cover this topic, and that's when there may be more questions that come up.
Thank you.
Mark, you have something?
Yeah, I'm of 2 minds. I was eating up Tom's sales pitch. I mean, I liked that it would be, senior housing. I liked the sensitivity to the abutters. I like that it's not 200 units or whatever that other was. But I also have, extended family that are abutters. So I'm like, as a planner, I would love to see, I love what Tom said about, help give the local priority and let local seniors downsize there and open up there. I love that whole scenario. I don't know how much of that would actually happen, but I definitely like this better than everything else I've heard as an option. So I kudos to Barry, but that being said, that's me personally, and I think I'm gonna have to recuse myself with the family as abutters. They might not agree.
Okay. If the motion Mr. Dwyer has made passed and we make no official recommendation, nothing is preventing any planning board member from standing up at town meeting and supporting this article. And speaking in favor of it.
No, yeah, I understand. I'm recusing myself tonight, but at town meeting, my tongue is untied.
Okay. I think it's a good option for the property myself. If we vote to not support it, like I said, I fully intend to stand at town meeting and say that I do support it. And I think it's a good use of the property. I'll say that. In fact, I say it right now. I think it's an appropriate use of the property, irrespective of the motion we make tonight. And the motion tonight is more like many times when a article comes up before us by petition, more often than not, if we can, we take no action for the simple reason that we don't want to look too biased for or against it. Unless we think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And this is by all means a good option for the property. Enough said. Do you have any comments on it? I'll put you on the spot.
No, I've just been listening. I think I agree with you, Mr. Chair. I think it seems to make sense, given the future, in terms of bringing in younger families and having a spot for seniors to go. But I also agree with what Joe said. I was a little bit unfamiliar with what type of awareness the public has to it. And I think you answered my question in terms of how that awareness gets out there. I'm kind of inclined, just being fairly new to it and still kind of getting my bearings a little bit, to lean towards Bill's request for no action. I think kind of somewhere in the middle doesn't necessarily mean we oppose it. But,
Regarding the question on notice of abutters, I mean, you raise a good one, but you know, state law is what state law has. And if we start trying to get too carried away, notify abutters, then we kind of need to do it every single time, and that gets to be extremely cumbersome. I drive through New York a lot, upstate New York, around the north of Albany, and I've noticed when they propose a zone change, they actually put a posting on a property that said the public hearing will be held on this, and I thought that was pretty cool. However, would be tough to do that around here sometimes. So I would just mention that's what New York does. I've noticed that, and I thought that was a pretty interesting concept. Anyways,
Right. Two quick things, Jim, if I could. One is going to be a question for Kyle and maybe even for Richard to put his hat on. And whether or not this would only require a simple majority at town meeting if it's an eligible location. I'm not sure that it would, but just to look or think about that. And then while they're thinking, the second point is going to be if this does fail, if there is not a recommendation, and then it does fail at town meeting, this is prohibited from coming back for a period of 2 years before it would come back again.
Without an affirmative vote of the planning board.
Yes. It could come back in the spring town meeting with an affirmative vote of the planning board.
If you vote for it, okay,
If we vote for it, if we vote to
at
bring
that
it back,
time,
yes,
If we vote to allow it to come forward again,
yes.
okay.
we can vote to resubmit it without, and still vote not to make a recommendation on it.
Okay.
Any other comments from anybody? Hearing none? Yes, sir.
I'm just going to touch on Tom's request. First of all, I would say, Tom, they should talk to town council about that question. But I would also, in my opinion, given what I had in private project in South Hadley, the town council here, what their opinion was on that project, I would be inclined, if it's an eligible location, and as defined in state law, that probably is a simple majority vote at town meeting.
For a zone change?
Under the new state law, they changed it from always a 2/3 to certain types of housing projects of simple majority.
No, 40R, that's what he's referring.
No, there's other types, Joe. That's
Basically, if it's something that makes housing easier to do, it's generally a simple majority vote at town meeting, if it's an eligible location.
So if I could just, by way of background, Mr. Harris is formerly the planning director for the town of South Hadley.
I was gonna ask what his standing was. Thank you.
And I've been doing private consulting work since I retired.
Didn't realize that was a change in the voting law like that. I thought the town had to adopt or accept that statute.
No,
Really?
it's in 48 section 5 is written. It makes certain exceptions to the supermajority requirement.
That's the same statute that had that we've been addressing as the ADU, right?
48
Same-
section 3 for ADU.
Okay.
Section 5 of chapter 48 deals with amendments to the zoning bylaw and zoning map.
Whatever it'll be, we'll find out. We'll get the official two comments from town council at the town meeting, and we'll have that straightened out by then.
Yeah, I think I'll flag this as something that they should be looking at prior to town meeting.
Thanks. Yeah, because I just don't know, Bill. I know we're doing this in Amherst, frankly, for an overlay district, and there was just in Amherst, there was a discussion about planning board identifying it or somebody identifying it as an eligible location ahead of town meeting, just so that everybody understands the voting requirements. So the sooner the better, and we're happy to support however we can.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to officially make no recommendation to town meeting on this item. Roll call vote.
Dunn, aye.
I or abstain.
Or I guess I have to abstain.
Okay. I was gonna say, okay,
Yeah.
yes, okay.
Okay. Dwyer, aye.
Maximovsky, aye.
Waldrop, aye.
Zagradnik, aye.
Motion passes 4-0 with one abstention to make no recommendation to town meeting.
Thank you.
Now for the interesting topic next is the amend the accessory apartment section 26
Dwelling unit.
accessory apartments to the new accessory dwelling unit and remove the section, various sections, add some definitions, make some definitions, clarify some other things in the definition unit. And accessory dwelling units are allowed by right in all places where single family dwellings are allowed, be it detached or attached. And only one accessory dwelling unit per building lot is permitted. And the way we're revising the bylaw is you still got to comply with Title V or sewer connection as the case may be. You need to have one or the other. You need to have a bona fide septic system or a bona fide sewer connection. You must have, these, you got to comply, obviously you got to comply with building codes. Let's see, some other highlights. It'll be allowed in all districts where single-family dwellings are permitted right now by right. It will not be allowed in the industrial district. What is required will be a administrative review of the proposal by the planning board. The administrative review is simply you submit your plans to the planning board and all the other information. The planning board will review your plans at a regularly scheduled meeting. No public notice, no abutter notice or anything else is required. And we will be doing that within, I think they say 35 days to 30 days of the application. And the only reason for the 35 days is sometimes you're gonna 30, holidays in between, 31-day month, whatever it might be. So the planning will basically have 1 month to review the application and make either approve it, or if you're grossly missing something, then we could deny it, but that would only be until you correct the grossly missing items. Comments or questions from anybody? Yes, sir.
Setback regulations, will that change from our town? The side yard dimensions, I read
No,
that accessory dwelling.
Setbacks will still be valid.
Well, I read somewhere that accessory dwelling units will be 5 feet from the side yard, so we should check on that.
Did you read that?
I read it and online, and it was under accessory dwelling units from the state, and it had to do with the Department of Director of Livable Communities Division. And
We did not see that in the law, in the.
well, that's okay. We've got to check it. And are we going to present it to the fall meeting or to the spring meeting?
We have no choice but to do it for the fall meeting. The law takes effect February 2025, and we do not have time, meaning the town meeting is in May.
Well, the woman who is, once again, her name is Chris Latchman. This was out of the Greenfield paper, and she said, my guess is that there won't be many dwelling units application prior to Springtown meetings.
Well, the law specifically says February 2025.
Well, she is the
I
one.
don't care what she says. I'm telling you what the law says.
She's in charge. So,
Well, she's not in charge of the law. Mr.
Okay, now another question that is, came up is the fact that, if, I have a bedroom, I have a 3-bedroom house and 1 bedroom is not being used in the, ADU in the backyard, can it, attach to that? Or does it have to have its own septic system? And that is one they're gonna make a decision on too. So there are a lot of questions that are appearing before this board. And
I can only comment that the law says it takes effect February 2025. And if we drag our feet, we could really lose a lot. So we will go forward for the fall town meeting. If things change, they change, and we can always amend it to spring town meeting. But if we do nothing,
well,
shame on us.
well, I agree with you there, but there's and certainly they want to change Title V, and that could be in the works too. But
Well,
so, I would say let's check with town council.
if they change Title V, that is irrelevant of us, because the law says that they gotta comply with Title V. So if Title V changes, they still comply with it. That's out of our control. That's the Board of Health.
Mr. Harris had a question.
Yes, sir.
First, let me back up the chairman's comment. February 2nd, 2025, the new law takes effect, and ADUs are exempt from zoning, subject to reasonable regulations at that time. As long as they meet the state definition, they're allowed. So come February 3rd, somebody comes in, applies for building permit for a detached ADU. If you don't have something else on the books says otherwise, then they are entitled to get permit for it. I do have a couple of questions for clarification. I understand the intent is to only require administrative review, but I looked down at 26.2.6, and it says ADU shall conform to site plan approval of the zoning bylaw, and then it's got several subsections referenced there. That seems to suggest that possibly site plan approval is also could be required as well. And I think the intent is that the low one probably means the submission requirements has to meet those sections.
Yes, it is intended to meet submission to meet those sections of site plan review, site plan approval, but not to be not to be a site plan approval process.
I would suggest maybe just make that a little bit clearer down there, that the submission requirements have to conform that.
Okay.
Additionally,
That's yes.
26.2.6
Yes.
list 8.1.3, and that I think is missing a number, because that is one of the purpose statements of your accessory apartment bylaw, ADU. I think it should have something else, another digit in there, but I'm not sure what it should be.
Okay, go run through that again. What's
26.2.6, it has shotgun site plan approval, but not limited to 8.1.3. And if I read your bylaw correctly, that is a purpose statement of your site plan approval provisions. So I think that may need to be clarified.
Yeah, 8.1.3 says to protect the rural character, aesthetic visual qualities, natural environmental features, historical features, and property values of the town and neighboring properties.
Right. So that is a vague statement. I'm not sure that how that can be met as a submission requirement.
See what you're saying.
And then back up. I understand that where sewer is available, they have tie on to sewer, and then they have connect septic system. But 26.2.12 says if ADU is a separate dwelling unit, it shall have septic system compliant to Title V. I assume that should be if ADU is a separate dwelling unit and is not able to tie on to sewer, it shall have separate septic system. Is that the intent of that statement?
Say it again. I don't quite get what you said.
Okay, 26.2.12.
Oh, one purpose. Okay.
If ADU is a separate dwelling unit, it shall have a septic system. I assume that is intended to be if it is a separate dwelling unit and cannot tie on to sewer, then it shall have a separate
That's correct.
system. So may want to insert that language in there just to make it clear.
26.2.12.
26.2.12.
Okay.
1.2. 1.2.
26.2.1.2.
Okay,
Correct.
Okay.
thank you.
So those are just some questions I had about it for clarification purposes. I've worked with several communities where I've been advising them on updating their ADU bylaws as well. And I think it pretty much addresses everything I see as a question.
About a rural area that has no town water?
As long as it meets Title V.
So they have a well.
There
That will-
is, Title V does address separation between septic and well.
Correct. I think if they don't have town water, they're probably going to have a logistical issue of trying to make it work. But as long as they can meet Title V, I think they should be fine.
There are certain,
Very few places that don't have town water, but there are some.
well, we know of some that are being built right now that don't have town water. They're gonna have well and a septic. And how about parking?
All they have to have is one parking space. That's spelled out right in the ADU, but state by law.
They require more than one space.
So
And it,
this is a question I posed to town council and I don't have a reply yet. There is something that says unless you are within 1 mile of a bus station, train station. But I'm not sure I've seen the definition of a station. So we don't have any stations in Hadley. We have multiple stops, but
it can be a bus station, it can be a subway, bus station, bus terminal, and they don't require any parking.
right. So the
Within
question is,
half a mile of
the question is that something we are subject to or not? Because, the bus goes along Route 9. Does that mean we cannot require parking within a mile of Route 9?
or half.
Or are bus stops not bus stations?
I would give you my opinion. In talking with the folks of the state about 40R district requirements of access to transit stations and everything, their opinion on 40R is that a bus stop is not a station. And therefore, I would think they're going to have the same opinion on this, because intent of a station is that you can change buses, you can change from one to the other. There's parking areas, that type of thing. So since there's not that type of arrangement, I would guess they can use the same approach. That's the way I've been approaching this whole topic.
I hope you're correct. Because
Otherwise it's a problem for a lot of people.
the bus runs down Route 9, the bus runs down Route 47, and it would mean that, and it's not highly utilized when on the side roads. But because it goes to Mount Holyoke College, it runs down 47 south through down by by the Barstow Farm area.
But
No.
and typically where you have stations, you have sidewalks everywhere too. And so there's pedestrian opportunities. You don't have that in many places, I don't think.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that I'm correct about how they interpret this.
Okay, well, thank you for your input. It's very helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else have any comments or questions?
So I would like to move to continue this part of the discussion. We voted on the other two, but I'd like to continue the hearing to our next meeting.
Okay.
I did ask town hall, the selectman's office, select board office to ask town council to take a look at this section for tonight. I've had no reply. Admittedly, I didn't ask until last Thursday. So I think it might be helpful to just let this run for a bit and see what we get. I know we're kind of busy at our next meeting. We have a couple of public hearings scheduled, but it shouldn't be a big deal if we get some suggestions back from town council.
Yeah, well, and I can make the corrections that Mr. Harris suggested to the bylaw, because the town meeting has been postponed, so it's not going to be held in October. It will be continued probably till the first. I've got which Thursday they said in November. I don't know if they
November 14th, I think.
the 11/14. Okay. So they won't need the actual article until probably after our next meeting for sure, if not even in early November.
Right.
So.
So that would be to continue it to October 15th.
Correct.
If you're making a motion, I would second it.
So we'll continue this one zone bylaw proposed amendment to 10/15.
Or just do a roll call to be sure.
Yeah, well, I intend to make a vote. I just want to let everybody know what the date is. That's what we're voting on. Yes. Okay. Roll call vote.
Stone, aye.
Dwyer, aye.
Maximowski, aye.
Walter, aye.
Zagradnik, aye.
5-0. Motion passed unanimously to continue this portion of the amendments to 10/15.
Gee, Jim, before I run out, I was quoting from what I thought was the Greenfield newspaper. It was a story from the State House News Service, if somebody wants to look it up, by Allison Kuznits, Kuznitz. It's a fairly comprehensive report of the problems that it's facing. In other words, the legislature probably wrote it and not aware that there are a lot of ramifications involved in zoning.
The legislature passed the law, like I said this before, you got one part of the legislature passing a law to make housing more affordable, and then you got another portion of the legislature passing all these wonderful things to make the state, etc., green, and they conflict because you got to build. If you build this is going to affect. If somebody has a garage, I'll use an example, and they want to make it a detached garage, and they want to make it an accessory dwelling unit, they're going to have to make that up to building code. And that is going to require wired for solar, wired for electric vehicle. The latest insulation standards, which I don't even know what they are, but if you got a if your garage is probably 30 or 40 years old and is built with 2x4s, it's not gonna pass insulation. Because you need at least 2x6s to meet the new energy code. You need a super thick ceiling to put the insulation, because you need something like an R50 ceiling. That's about a 14 or 15 inches of insulation up there, I think, or I'm close to it. So the building costs are going to be significant to make this little garage an accessory dwelling. And, you know, you're gonna have to get a lot of money if you want to rent it out.
And
Mr. Quinlan, when does the new strict energy code take effect?
Competition should be within the next month, I would say. That's gonna come through, and then you're gonna be full-fledged with all the, R60 ceiling, attic,
By the
and
time this-
R30 walls.
By the time the state law takes effect, the new strict energy code will be in effect, and you're gonna have to comply with all of these things.
Correct.
Okay,
another one, no oil burners, Jim, for heating.
is that one of them too? No oil burners?
I believe so.
Or is that the stoves that they're against gas?
Oh, I mean, there's, I don't know. I mean, there's, it's a lot. If you got a garage, you got 800 square foot garage that was probably built in I want to say the 70s or 80s. 70s would be a good one. Use that as a number. It probably cost you close to 200 grand to bring it to the present code to make it a 2-bedroom accessory unit.
Good, Jim, that's an excellent point. I asked 2 different developers. The low was the 200. The high was 370. Depends what you put on the inside. So how do you make that unit affordable? Okay.
That's all I'm making a comment is that you've got the 2 factions of the state, and their ideas are wonderful, but they conflict. And we'll leave it at that. Okay, anything else from anybody? Nothing?
The battery storage bylaw is still pending before the Attorney General. They did a second extension, and it was actually at the end of September, but I guess it must have gone into anyway, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, it was extended to early November. So maybe by town meeting we'll have a reply, but that's what it is. That is evidently generating some interesting discussions at the Attorney General's office between what the 2 different sides of what is being presented to them. So, anything else?
We have nothing else.
Anybody have anything? Right? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Motion second. Roll call vote.
did I see Tommy's hand go up?
Yeah, Todd.
He's waving.
He's
wanting to adjourn.
He's in favor of the motion to go to bed.
Yeah.
But he was gonna abstain.
Mr. Dunn?
I said aye.
Oh,
Dwyer, aye.
Maximowski, aye.
Walter, aye.
The Ryder guy?
Motion is unanimous, 5-0. The meeting is history. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Tom. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
At all.
Kyle.
Good night.
Kyle, you were, do you have to